to another episode of Garden to Table with Rose. And I am Rose. And on this channel, we talk about everything from growing your own food to preserving your own food to cooking your own food. So today I'm going to do a cooking video, and I haven't done one of those in a long time. I worked in my garden all day today. I am tired, I am sore, and I thought, I could use a little bit of a treat. So I looked for a recipe that involved bacon and a dessert because I love bacon in desserts. And I found a recipe for whiskey bacon brownies. Like three of my favorite things: whiskey, bacon, and chocolate. So I said, let me try to make that one. I've never made this recipe before. I'll try to put a link to the recipe in the comment section. And before I get started with the cooking demo, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel. I have a new video every Wednesday. And if you subscribe, you'll get alerts to that video. So whiskey bacon brownies. Firstly, preheat your oven. So the recipe calls for about 350, as most baking recipes do. I have a convection oven, so I usually do it a little bit lower, so because my oven cooks faster and you want it to, be done all the way through. So usually I do about 340, 335, and if you don't have a convection oven, do 350. So preheat the oven. In terms of ingredients, and mind you, I have prepped all of my ingredients because I want this video to be relatively short. So this video, operates from the premise that you know some basic things about cooking or baking. If you do not, then you probably have to search for another video on how do you, do basic things. But I'm gonna assume you already know, like, how to separate eggs and stuff like that. Okay, so the ingredients: I got 1 cup of melted butter. Everything is better with butter. Use real butter. Don't you dare put any margarine in your dish. Butter. So I melted that in the microwave. And then I got 4 eggs. Usually most recipes, when they call for eggs, they're talking about large eggs. I only buy jumbo eggs for the most part. So I'm just going to use what I got. I have 4 jumbo eggs in this bowl. Then it also calls for, I believe, 2 cups of flour and 2 cups of sugar. Yes, 2 cups of flour and 2 cups of sugar, white sugar. So I have all-purpose flour in this bowl, 2 cups, and 2 cups of sugar. You can separate them because they like you to add one thing at a time in these recipes. I don't separate flour and sugar for something like a brownie, which is going to be a dense dessert anyway. So I'm not worried about incorporating air and how light and fluffy it's going to be. It's a brownie, so I combine it in one bowl. You're also going to need some vanilla extract, and this is the one I've been using a lot lately, for the most part, Watkins, which seems pretty good. I think they have a vanilla bean paste too, but I don't really use that one. I use a different paste, but for vanilla extract, this is what I use. You could use paste, vanilla bean paste, but it's kind of a waste. Vanilla beans are very expensive. So the paste is extremely expensive because it actually has the little beans in it. And so that's something that I usually will use when vanilla is the primary flavor, or you can actually see the specks. If it's something that's going to get lost really with the overpowering taste of chocolate, then I would just go with an extract because you can save yourself, some money that way. You're also going to need a total of 8 slices of bacon. I think they said crumbled. Well, let me tell you, since I love bacon, one, I only buy thick cut bacon. I don't buy thin cut bacon because that's a waste of time. So I use thick cut bacon, which the recipe is probably talking about that regular thin stuff. I also use probably way more than they asked for. Also, let me tell you, bacon grease. Liquid gold is what we call it. Don't throw it out. No. You save bacon grease. Under almost all circumstances, you save bacon grease. Put it in a can, put it in a cup, put it somewhere where you can reuse it. So, generally I'll strain mine. I save it. I have a grease, like metal stainless steel grease container, and that's where I keep it. And then you basically use it in place of other kinds of oil for savory dishes. So if you have something that they want you to saute in, like olive oil, vegetable oil, whatever, you can substitute the bacon grease, and it just really adds a whole lot of flavor. Plus, it's salty from the bacon, so it adds salt, a whole lot of flavor, that smoky bacony flavor. So in savory dishes, it's fantastic. It's also good if you want to roast vegetables. Just like toss them in the bacon grease and put some salt and pepper on it. Throw them in your oven at a pretty high temperature and roast them. Bacon grease is fantastic. It is something you do not throw away. You save, you use. All right. So you're also going to need cocoa powder or cacao, however you want to pronounce it. You're going to need some of that because these are brownies. And finally, you're going to need whiskey. Now, I have Jameson because Jameson is my old friend. This is the whiskey actually I use just for everyday drinking. Just the straight up Jameson in the green bottle. Nothing too expensive. This is like an everyday whiskey for me. And me personally, I only like Irish whiskey. So I don't do American whiskey really. If you want to do that, you can. You can use bourbon. You can use Kentucky whiskey, Tennessee whiskey, whatever you want to use. It's up to you. But it needs to, kind of have that whiskey flair, smoky, rich, dark liqueur. So we're using Jameson's. So that's all you need for the actual brownies. Now there is some kind of topping that goes on top of it after it's done. And for that, you're going to need a cup of chopped walnuts. So I chopped them up in I got a little herb grinder thing. I just put them in there because it was easy. You could do it in your food processor. You can chop them by hand. It really depends on how fine you want them. I mean, if you want big chunks of it, then, you can use your food processor or a knife. I wanted mine pretty fine just because I just didn't really want to bite into any big chunks of nuts with this because there's so many competing flavors, like with the whiskey and the bacon. So I wanted to keep it fairly simple. So I ground mine up pretty fine. So you need a cup of that. You're going to need 4 egg yolks, just the yolks. So you should know how to separate eggs. And then put your yolks in one bowl. The egg whites save. Generally, whenever I make anything that's calling for just the whites or just the yolks, I'll save the other part, and the next day, the next morning, I'll have like some scrambled eggs or something, and I'll use it. So with the 4 egg whites, I will be doing egg white scramble, which egg whites are pretty bland. They don't have a lot of flavor. Alright guys, for some reason, part of my footage got lost. So the video cuts off where I'm giving the list of ingredients that you will need for your topping. You will need a cup of chopped walnuts, 4 egg yolks, a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. I chose to use whole milk, whole evaporated milk, 1 1/4 cup of brown sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, the rest of the bacon that you crumbled, which should be about 4 strips or more, depending on your preference, and 1 ounce of whiskey or more, depending on your preference. So that completes the list of ingredients for your topping. All right, so now mixing the batter. First, you're going to mix your 1 cup of melted butter, which I have poured in here, with 1/2 cup of your cocoa powder or cacao powder, however you want to describe it. So mix those together until they're pretty well incorporated. Then you're going to pour in your 4 eggs. And it makes it a lot easier if you prep all of this stuff and have it sitting in your bowls already measured out, because then you just throw it together and you're good to go. So I got my eggs in here, and then a tablespoon and a half of vanilla. They want you to add in with the eggs. And then I'm going to incorporate that as well. And the nice thing about brownies is that it's not an exact science when you're dealing with brownies. So a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, in case you don't know. So if you want a tablespoon and a half, You're going with 1 tablespoon and then a teaspoon and a half. So yeah, brownies are one where it's a dish where you don't have to be that precise when you're baking, and that's kind of nice if you want something quick to just throw together, you know. So now we're going to incorporate that into the chocolate mixture, the eggs and the vanilla, and we'll get that mixed up. And then after that's well incorporated, you pretty much want to add the sugar and the flour. I mix mine together like I said before. You can do it separately, you know, one by one, do the sugar first and the flour. It's up to you. Like I said, I'm making brownies. They're a pretty dense item, so I'm not really worried about incorporating a lot of air into it. I don't want it fluffy. I want them dense. So I kind of mix my flour and sugar together. Taking a while to get it incorporated. Alright, and now I'm going to add the flour and the sugar. Again, you want to stop your beater when you do this, or else you will have a mess on your hands because it will fly everywhere. And then whenever you're adding sugar and flour into a mixture in your mixer, you kind of want to start it off slow because you don't want that stuff to start flying. So, as much of it in there as I can. Alright, so basically I'm going to start it on the lowest setting just to get it incorporated. With brownies, you don't want to mix it too long because if you mix it too long, it's going to turn into cake batter instead of brownie batter. So with brownie batter, you want it kind of rough. You don't want it refined. So you just want to mix it until you can't see the white of the flour, until it's incorporated in with the chocolate, and then you stop. And that doesn't take long, a few seconds. All right, turn it up a little. One final whip, and I am done. All right, so now I'll take this off the mixer because they want us to incorporate the rest by hand, the whiskey and the bacon, I believe. So, you know, clean off your beater as best as you can because you don't want to leave any of this chocolatey goodness go to waste. You want it all, as much of it as you can get in your pan. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned it, but you're gonna need a 9x13 pan, metal. I would recommend. That just seems to work best for brownies. Plus that gives you kind of crispy edges, which most people like on a brownie. With the metal glass, it doesn't necessarily get as crispy, I think. For me personally, I line things with parchment paper. I like parchment paper because nothing really sticks to it. You don't even necessarily have to butter or flour it. So if you have parchment paper, I would recommend you cut a piece and put it down on the bottom of your pan just to make it easier to get your brownies out. Plus you don't want to dig in your pan with a knife or something and scratch it. So you want them to come out pretty easy. So you could, if you don't want to use parchment or you don't have it, you could just spray your pan with like cooking spray or butter it or spray it with some kind of oil. But you want to use a non-stick pan if you can, and you want to have something in it to try to help the brownies not stick so much so that you can get them out in one piece so that they're beautiful. So I'm just doing a little last incorporation of the chocolate that was in the bottom of the mixing bowl that didn't quite get all the way mixed in. Some folding, not stirring, but folding, if you know what folding is. It's where you incorporate air as you stir in pretty wide movements, I guess you could say. but I just want the chocolate incorporated. You don't want big spots of like dense chocolate and then other spots not much chocolate in your brownies. All right, so that's pretty good. Now they want you to add 1.5 ounce of whiskey, 4 strips of bacon, cooked and crumbled. So like I said, I did like 12 strips of thick bacon, and I ate some of it because it's bacon. So let's use half of it. This is not exact. Half. I'm going to save half for the topping. Alright. So that's good enough. And then 1.5 ounce of whiskey. Again, I wouldn't get too detailed with exact measurements. I have a little shot glass here. This is probably 2 ounces. But, you know, I'm just saying. Can't go wrong with whiskey. A little more. And I'm going to drink some. You know, have a shot while you're doing it. Make it fun. And, you know, when you cook with alcohol, most of the liquor will cook off. So really, you're concentrating the flavor of that liquor. You're not necessarily getting an alcohol content in your item. That's what shots are for. Woo! Okay. So, I'm going to stir this up in here with the bacon. Just until we'll fold it in, just until it's kind of incorporated. I want to, like I said, we're not trying to make a cake. So you want it to kind of have some, like I said, some density to it. Okay, I think pretty much that's it. And then we're going to pour this into your prepared pan, your 9x13 baking pan. Bake for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. And while that's baking, we'll prepare the topping. Put my recipe. What I tend to do, I mean, a lot of times I'll have the recipe on my phone or my tablet, Fire tablet or whatever, and then I can sit that up on a stand or something and refer back to the recipe. A lot of times though, when I'm just searching online and I find one that I like, I'll print it out. So when I have an actual printed out recipe, I just tape it either to one of my cabinets or, you know, use a magnet and stick it to the refrigerator so I can go back and reference it and know what I'm doing. Usually if you just put it on your counter or something, it'll get all wet and stuff will get on it, and you don't want that, because if you really like it, you probably want to save it and make it again, right? All right. So as you can see, I got my parchment lined 9x13 pan. I did not grease my parchment or anything because with a whole cup of butter, 2 sticks of butter, I didn't think I needed any extra fat. So I'm just gonna go with the parchment. And I'm basically spooning this inside of the parchment, and then I'm gonna spread it out with the spatula a little bit to try to make it even layer. You know, you don't want your brownies to be lopsided, you know, thick in one section, thin in the other. The goal here is for it to be pretty uniform. Each slice, each square, I should say, once you cut them up, right? You want the first one to taste as good as the last one. So, and you know, use your spatula, get all your stuff out of there. You know, every time I watch these chefs on these cooking shows, like they leave so much of the batter and stuff behind because they only use, you know, so much, and they don't take the, you know, I guess they're in a rush. They're chefs, but they don't really take the time to scrape things out so much. They just kind of get some out and leave the rest, and I guess I'm assuming just gonna throw it out, but I don't do that. Nope, 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 nope. I want all of it. Every bit. So I'm with like a scraper of the bowl. I get my spatulas, my silicone spatulas, and I scrape and get everything out. Now mind you, there's no way in tarnation that I could eat a 9x13 pan of brownies It's just me and my son. Now, he'll probably eat them because he loves chocolate, but I'll probably have one, and then one and done is for me. Usually once I get, you know, a taste of a dessert, I'm satisfied. I try not to really go back for more. I don't usually have a desire really to go back for more because I don't eat a lot of sweets. Kind of grown out of a lot of sweets, and I try to stay low carb, so I don't like eating a lot of sugar, a lot of processed things. And this has a bunch of white sugar in it, and the topping has a bunch of brown sugar in it. So this is more like a treat, you know, for me. Desserts are a treat. I have one piece, one cookie, or whatever, if I make it, and then I'm done. All right, let me get all of this out of the way. All right, so I got my batter in here. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. It looks like brownie batter. So I'm gonna bake this for 20 minutes in my oven, which is set at 340 because it's a convection oven. And then I will take it out. While it's baking, we're gonna do the topping. So stay tuned for the next part of this video, which is making the topping that we're gonna put on the brownies once we get them out of the oven. All right, and then hopefully we won't have to wait too long to eat them. All right, our brownies are baking for 20 minutes in my 340 oven, or 350 if you don't have a convection oven. And now we're gonna make the topping that goes on the brownies after they're done. So now we need a saucepan for this. Apparently this is a cooked topping. So it says add your evaporated milk, which I have my 1 can of evaporated milk here, whatever brand you want. Mine is whole milk, whole evaporated milk. You can use, like I said, whatever kind you want. You can use skim, you can use low fat, but I'm not doing all of that. All right, and then let's see, the evaporated milk, the brown sugar, the egg yolks. Brown sugar was, I believe, 1 1/4 cup of brown sugar. I did not pack it down. You can if you want. I don't like things super sweet, so if I can shave off a half a cup, a 1/4 cup somewhere, I will. But this is actually no. This is my brown sugar. I used a cup instead of, I was about to put my walnuts in there. Oh man. I used 1 cup of brown sugar. The recipe calls for 1 1/4 cup. So I shaved off a little bit, but like I said, I don't like things super sweet, so it's fine. And then I got my 4 egg yolks, and they want you to put those in as well. So I don't even know what this is gonna be. It's almost kind of like a custard, making a custard base, but we shall see how this turns out. So, stirring this up. You can use a whisk. I don't like using whisk in my nonstick pans because I don't want to scratch them up. So I usually just use, you know, either a silicone spatula or a wooden spatula. So it says, let's see, whisk, bring to a simmer for 10 minutes until thickened. So that's a while. This really is kind of like a custard. 10 minutes. So one of the reasons why you want to whisk it is because you're putting eggs in there. You don't want the eggs to cook and be like scrambled egg yolks. You want them to incorporate into your mixture. So you kind of got to keep stirring or whisking, whichever you choose to use, while it's heating up. Once it gets pretty hot and it's kind of like at the simmer you're talking about, you don't need to worry about curdling as much. But you still want to stir it to keep it from sticking. And so for me, I may very well even strain this just because I like things smooth. If it's supposed to be a custard type base, I want it pretty smooth. So, you know, you get some little lumps sometimes. As much as you try, you may not be able to stop your eggs from curdling at least a little bit. So, in that case, don't throw your stuff out and be like, oh no, my eggs curdled, I gotta throw it out. Nope, you can strain it once it's done. Put it through a fine mesh strainer Get those solids out and you can still use it. All right. So 10 minutes of this. 10 minutes until thickened. Once you've cooked it for 10 minutes and it's thickened, it says take it off the heat, stir in the whiskey, bacon, and walnuts, then set aside to cool, which is simple, easy peasy. And then after the brownies have cooled completely, which is going to take a little bit of time, at least an hour, then spread the topping over, cut, and serve. So you see how pretty straightforward that is. I mean, it's a little bit of time to prep the ingredients, like I said, and cook your bacon. I've got the rest of my bacon here. A little bit of time. But if you have everything prepped, it goes really quickly. So I'm going to finish this topping. I'm going to cook it for 10 minutes. You don't need to watch me serve for 10 minutes, but I'm going to do that. Stir in my whiskey, bacon, walnuts. Let that cool. And then I'll get my brownies out by then. They should be done because it's only 20 minutes. And so when it's time to apply the topping and cut the brownies and taste test them, then I will be back and let you know what I think of this recipe, okay? So stay tuned. Hello, and I am back with the final wrap up of this recipe, the whiskey bacon brownies. So I made my sauce, as you all saw in the last segment. I cooked the evaporated milk along with the 4 egg yolks, the cup of brown sugar, and there was also a teaspoon, I believe, of vanilla extract that the recipe called for, but the recipe had a typo in that it didn't tell you when to add the vanilla extract. I waited until my custard was done and then I added it at the end. So once your custard is done, and like I said, if you get any lumps or any curdling of the eggs, you don't have to throw it out, just strain it through a mesh strainer and that'll get the solids out and you'll still have your custard. So then I stirred in the cup of chopped walnuts, the remainder of the chopped bacon that I had, 1 ounce of whiskey, but for me it was probably 2 ounces, and then a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So you stir all that together, and what you end up with is this beautiful custard with all kinds of goodies in it. And then after I made this, one thing I thought about was like, you literally could take this and put it in an ice cream maker and make a whiskey bacon ice cream. Oh, that would be awesome. Actually, this brownie would be awesome with ice cream, either vanilla or whiskey ice cream, whiskey bacon ice cream, bacon ice cream, maple bacon ice cream. So there are a lot of options here, especially if you know how to make ice cream, which I do, but I'm not making any today. And I'm not having any today because this is more than enough. So cool your brownies. I've cooled my 9x13 slab of brownie, and then just slather some of this sauce on top of it. Now you can leave it in the pan, which is easier. You don't have a separate thing to clean if you want. I have mine sitting on this cutting board just because I'm doing the video and it makes it easier to see it. So, you know, spread it out to the ends. It's a lot of topping. Run it over the edge. It's cool. You know, use it all. I definitely would not let it go to waste. It is, and I tasted it. This custard topping is pretty darn rich and tasty. So I would go for it. Don't splurge. Go for it. Go for it. All right. So we got most of that on, and let me see if I can hold this up. So this is your finished product. You got your brownies. It's fairly thin. It's about 1.5 inches in terms of thickness. And then you have your custard topping, which has lovely walnut pieces and bacon pieces, plus the whiskey flavor. So I'm gonna cut a little. We gotta do a taste test. This is a cooking video. Now, I'm not an in-piece person. I know some people Love their end pieces of the brownies because it's a little crispy. I am more of the middle person. I don't want any crispy edges. I just want it to be all soft and gooey. So, in order to accommodate my desire for a middle piece, I'll cut quite a bit here. So let's see. We got to do a taste test. This is a very small square. And like I said, you could add some ice cream to that, garnish it, use whipped cream, whatever you want. But I'm not doing all that. Obviously, this is just a taste test. So let's see. Here we go. Oh my. That is rich. And now the topping, the whiskey wasn't cooked. It was added at the very end. So you get the liquor flavor. You get more of that boozy flavor. And then you got the whiskey flavor in the brownie. You got bacon. You got, in my case, finely ground nuts. You can do chunky ones, you know, coarse ones if you want to. And the bacon's crunchy still. I mean, obviously, as you let this sit, the bacon will probably get a little softer. But right now, the bacon and the topping is still crunchy. Okay. Well, I should probably stop eating and wrap this up. Oh man, that's good. It's a boozy, bacony concoction. It's a keeper. It's a winner. It's really good. So I would make this again, definitely. And it's unique. So this is something like, you know, you go into a potluck or something. You know, maybe you want to take brownies. People take brownies, cupcakes, cookies, whatever. You could take this, and this would be like the most unique brownie most people have probably ever had. So I like it. It's awesome. It's rich though. There's a lot of butter, a lot of sugar, a lot of fat, chocolate, bacon. It's very decadent. So you only need a little square. You saw how big the piece was I had. Not much. Anyway, I give this 4 out of 5 stars. It's really good, really rich. Probably would benefit from either some ice cream on the side, like some vanilla ice cream, or a strong espresso with it to kind of cut back on the sugar and the richness a little bit. So, or you can even, you know, just have it with a whiskey, you know, why not? So, thank you for watching this episode. Again, this is a whiskey bacon brownie, and it's definitely tasty. Maybe you'll try to make it. I'll link the recipe in the comments section. So if you'd like to try it out, go for it. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And I shall see you next time. Bye-bye.